Well, hello people, and welcome back to another Cities Skylines 1 map tier video. Just as we think we're done with these and the last DLC is released for CS1, another one swings open. Wonderful Uncle Ron, who has an enormous collection on the Steam Workshop, had his own map pack and it is thoroughly deserved. I was lucky enough to meet Ron in Finland last year, and he really is a beautiful human being with fantastic character. But we won't be biased here today, we are here to judge his maps, of which there is 10, and as with Teddy's map pack 3, we also get some new placeable interchanges here, which is an enormous upgrade for those on console or pure vanilla. Well, let's get stuck into it, shall we? First up, we have the Badland Ridges, which is going into a must-play. Badland Ridges is a European-themed map with an 89% buildable area. It has no sea connection, or natural resources, but very little water. Those interested in the natural resources, fertile land is isolated to the very iconic circular irrigation fields, oil in the valley, and then lots of ore along the ridge. Fishing is obviously pretty limited, but if you do want to do it, you'll be catching salmon and anchovies. And the terrain, I hope you can all recognise, at least I think I can recognise this one. It looks almost identical to the Phoenix Valley, especially with the road network as well. And your initial starting tile consists of an interchange, 2 entry points into the highway network with grid, rivers and trains. Why everyone indeed is this must play, and I'm almost sure that this is based on Phoenix, right? It has to be. It looks almost identical to the Phoenix Valley, so there's probably a little bit of bias of me putting this in. Must play. But this map is tailor-made and geared for a Margrid project, which is something I would highly recommend. I probably had the most amount of fun in any of my cities building out Ilos's Margrid. So I definitely try a project like that if you haven't. They're tons of fun. But the starting tile is wonderful. We're getting trains immediately, which is so good for planning. An abandoned factory, and indeed some abandoned homes too. Nice detailing. Following the couplet, which always gets points, it splits off into highway networks and goes all bendy over level crossings. Very nice country networks all the way through here. Up to a little trumpet interchange. With this little single lane highway snaking all the way through the desert, flanked by these big ridges. It's got to be Phoenix, hasn't it? It has to be. It has to be Phoenix. Is that like Camelback Mountain over there? I think it is, isn't it? I'm almost convinced now. It has to be. But he's even used the big rocks here as well. You can see them real kind of iconic landmarks across this big sandy stretch. Sand might pull it down in some estimations for some people, I realise that. Kind of snow and sand builds tend to be a bit more of an acquired taste, but I've tried a few of them now and definitely recommend them. They're a lot of fun. I love the use of resources to paint different surfaces in. That's very handy. Really brings some nice welcome greenery to a very dry valley, doesn't it? Super nice, super visually distinctive as well, isn't it? The little collection of rocks over here around a beast of a rail interchange. Look at that. My word. Isn't that impressive? That's amazing. Great train infrastructure. Uncle Ron. Train police commissioner. Amazing. Great work. This runs off to your outside connections with more rocks and more big curvy winding highways. I'm interested to know actually, with all these nodes and rails, what's the node count on? Yeah, I've got the thought so. This map starts with 11% of its nodes already used. That rail interchange. Absolutely eating the nodes. You'd love to see it. Brilliant. Yeah, this comes all the way out again, meeting with more rail. And just wonderful countryside infrastructure. Little coupler out in the middle of nowhere. So you're getting a lot of diverse scenery on this map. You could also terraform the river out as well if you wanted more of a waterfront. But I think it kind of lends itself to the map anyway to have this little water, doesn't it? Bridges over here too. With just such slick interchange design, isn't it? Really nice work. Atop the plateaus, there isn't too much. But there is definitely some very dramatic crevices coming down here, right? You can definitely tell this has been taken from a height map. It just looks so cool. Got all the pattern in the rock here. Amazing, look at that. They might be some one of the best CS1 ridges I think we've ever seen. They're very nice, aren't they? Got all the texture and pattern in there with the road cutting through. and the green forest at the bottom of the valley. So amazing, beautiful map, really, really sweet. And then the other plateau, kind of south, is also full of rocks and winding country road. More valleys, gullies, and these really interesting interchanges we keep seeing. Almost kind of cube abouts, aren't they? Interesting, we see them on the highway interchanges too. Here's the source of the river, which I'm guessing is dropping down. Waterfall is indeed here. This level. And then again. I think you're going to get most of your building done in the Phoenix Valley, if you like, for a more appropriate term, I think. But Badland Ridges, super cool. If you haven't tried a Margrid project, take it on my word to go and try one. They're super unique, and there's tons of Margrid cities across the southwest of America in particular that you can just pick different bits of inspiration from and piece together your own Margrid structure. It's very impressive and very unique to build. It's almost like so much grid. The grid becomes fun again. Do you know what I mean? Super fun. Give it a try. Must play for me. Next up is Midshire, which goes into a very healthy A tier listing. Midshire is a temperate theme map with a 96% buildable area, one of the highest ever. It has no sea connection, all of its natural resources, and very little water. The map is also very heavily English inspired, especially given the name, but given the vast, endless field visual as well. For your natural resources, possibly the most diverse and interesting natural resource map we've ever had on a tier list. When have we ever seen something like that? Everything is everywhere, so take your pick. In your terrain, the south and the northwest are a little more hilly, but a lot of it is gentle, rolling hills and plains. You won't run into too many terrain issues here. Fish, as with the last map, is limited to the rivers, and again, it will be salmon and anchovies that you find there. Your starting tile is also very unique. The highway breaks off into smaller rural roads. Possibly the most unique starting tile we've also ever seen in one of these map packs. Should also note, just whilst it's on my mind, I am playing with my usual mod set here. You can see Find It, Picker, Move It, Unified UI, and everything is fine, so don't worry about your mods breaking. There's no new mechanics or game update happening with this, it's just new assets and maps, so your mods will be okay. But Midshire is very clearly British inspired, isn't it? Look at that. Endless fields. Just across the whole map, look at that. So cool, that, isn't it? I really love the resource fields. Already in Uncle Ron's first two maps, it's a key theme, isn't it? But let's get stuck into this starting tile. Very unique. So we're coming to a roundabout. I guess the idea eventually is to link this together. It comes off down here. Lots of little roundabouts. And wonderful little castle infrastructures. That's such a cool use of the vanilla ruins. Look at that. Even little cars parked up here as well. Granted, they're all burnt out. But that's okay. It's obviously a rough castle, a bit dodgy around here. But a little graveyard too. So we could build something really nice around this. There's a few castle structures across this map as well. We can see another one here heading across this trumpet interchange. So ye old castle is present, which is great. Right? Tons of country fun to have out here. Loads of seaside resorts combinations would go very well. Train line also running through. Alongside the highway through the starting tile, joining up with another one. That passes through many more fields to your two outside connections. Also another train line as well, tons of train infrastructure here, all branching off from one another. The other side of the starting tile peels off into some basic ramp interchanges here. Nice use of the terrain, very tasteful and symmetrical as well. Very nice run, love that. And then some fun bridges popping up and out over to the hills, kind of roll too. Into the biggest interchange on the map, an enormous beast of a stat, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Nicely detailed too, with the thick forests on the edge. Very British, that actually. Reminds me of where the I think it's the M6 joins the 62, I think it is. Somewhere around there, like junction 22. I think it looks a lot like that. I'm sure these are all over the UK anyway. But I think a UK map without custom assets could be quite a challenge, I think. On the same topic, actually, I'm not sure if I can ever recall any unmodded British builds in CS1. You have to let me know if there are any. But look at all these hills, right? Thick forests makes way for these breaking field patterns. Which, of course, are there visually. for the field aesthetic, but this is your natural resource. So if you do want a refinery, for example, you'll have to take up one of your oil spots, which could be really cool actually, because you'd be building to that shape and size and then have this big bit of industry just surrounded by farmland anyway, without having to build the farmland yourself. So it could actually end up being quite an interesting design actually. Sweeping highways come all the way down the hillside until we reach our outside connection. And then coming into these taller hills in the northwest, you can see another train bridge. Tons of train infrastructure on this map, serving another outside connection. This one weaves its way through these hills. Isn't it such a fun map? It just looks like the Shire, basically. Hence the name, Midshire. Hopefully this gradient is appropriate for the train place. Given Ron's experience, I will assume so. I won't measure it. Oh, and then I've got this. Isn't that fun? So there's this. Oh, it's like Stonehenge. Amazing. Amazing run. That's so fun. Even built Stonehenge in here too. Fantastic. Great use of vanilla props. Make a little tourist attraction out of this. Very nice. Great little bits of country detail, and that always resonate with me. And then there's lots of little abandoned homes throughout what is a pretty similar looking map all over. If you want to play this Midshire map, you better get used to those fields because it's all you're going to see. But very well designed, nice interchanges and some really cute detailing. Put it as a very strong A-tier map for me. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you're going to attempt a British build here. Next up we have Oxbow River, which falls into very strong A-tier map. Oxbow River is a European themed map. It has an 83% buildable area, all of its outside connections, and all natural resources. For your natural resources, the resources have been used basically as a surface painter here to give you two very distinct biomes. Your fertile land is isolated north and south, with everything else patchy in between, with most of your oil being located underwater, which is an important note here. For fishing, everything is available, and for your terrain, with an 83% buildable area, you're not going to run into too many issues here. Rolling hills is as bad as it gets. And your starting tile is another very unique one as well, but you do have water and rail present, which is always a nice bonus. So of course, this map is named after its great oxbows. Look at those. Super interesting geography with the waterways through here. Amazing, isn't it? Really nice. But the starting tile, super unique. You can totally envision this elevated road connecting with that bridge at some point and having many ramps on and off. Or indeed you could keep it as this too. Really fun little ramp systems on nice impressive bridges spanning over the main river here. So you could totally build a significant metropolis all through this big wide river. Nice castle detailing again also present. Even elevated up a bit too, which is a nice way to use the castle. Really fun that. A nice, impressive, kind of arched bridge going over, isn't that wonderful? Highway connections here. Back to a favoured, wonderful, detailed trumpet interchange with a little birch circle. Right? Love the birch circle, actually. I'll have to bring more birch circle into my cities. Get that on a t-shirt, couldn't we? There is lots of birch here on a little cloverleaf interchange. But the most distinctive thing about the map is its visual different biomes, isn't it? With the fertile land all isolated to separate areas. And look at this border. Isn't that just such a cool, just looking map? Two different styles, almost like two different biomes again, isn't it? Which I think really pulls it up in the ranking. And then all this is just rolling endless hills out here. Not super flat, but you can just about make out the little lumps and bumps across the terrain, can't you? So, massive, endless farming countryside, if you wanted to go that way. Same again over this side of the highway, with the rivers, thick trees. Really fun map. It's just such a visual feast, isn't it? I think it's the best way to describe it. Well, wonderful interchange work this side as well. Not all omnidirectional as well, which I like. Not all of them are. Just wonderful configurations. Nice tree linings all the way down these networks. More, more insane birch city over here, right? This is the birch change. We love the birch change. And then little lakes scattered all across. Before we find a pre-terraformed strip mine, which is very nice. This will obviously hold. Or, right, it has to. Yeah, it does. Love to see it. Usually we see so many preset port infrastructure, not so much preset mining infrastructure on the maps. I really like that. And just hidden as well by the tree line. Once you fill this with those tooth excavators and all the mining buildings from Industries DLC, this will be a really cool build by the highway there. So another super interesting map, and Uncle Ron turning out to be just a master with the resource painter, isn't he? Painting in all these different surfaces in the 3 maps we've seen so far. More great rail work too. Really love to see that. Sensibly graded bridges, I hope. Of course, look at that. Masterful, isn't it? These map makers are just different gravy, aren't they? Little factory gearing you up for some industrial development. Oh, that train snakes all the way through the plains, right? Super cool map. You're going to get some really fun geography here. But I really love the rivers here. You could get some significant infrastructure and city building done all around that main central river, with kind of a more gradual map-wide crawling height back out to the outer lying farmlands. Could be a very unique project, this one, if you attempt it. Let me know if you're going to. Next up, we have Paradise Coast, which falls into a very strong A-tier ranking. Paradise Coast is a tropical theme map with a 75% buildable area. It has all outside connections and all resources available. Your natural resources, lots of oil in the water, and a pretty even split of ore and fertile land around most of your buildable area. To the west is very mountainous, so this will be quite inaccessible, especially for DLC farming. Your fish here, you have everything but tuna, but lots of opportunities to do it with so much coastline. And your terrain is surprisingly deceiving. This is a 75% buildable area, but it looks a bit less than that to me. But interesting topography nonetheless. Your starting tile does feature water, roundabouts, and trains with nice buildable area to play with. So Tropical Coast is indeed full of tropical coast. We have this big peninsula coming out over here. Reminds me a lot of Thessia, this map, especially over here with all the little sandbanks coming out the bay. We'll get over there. But really nice topography, as you could have so much tropical fun through here, couldn't you? Seaside resorts, builds, tourism, loads of ferry networks. Little islands out here as well where your shipping lanes are taking place. So your starting tile is right here. This is where we come into the city. Some fun little details already present, abandoned homes and whatnot. And then a pretty sharp drop down actually to your coastline. It's definitely not on the same terrain layer here. So be prepared for a fight with the terrain on this map because it isn't particularly flat away from the middle. Heading to that buildable area, there is mostly through here. You can kind of get a bit of a sense of it from the orbit. All this fertile space through here in the valleys, I think is where you're going to get most of your building done on this map. It's very pretty though. I really like the mountains. We'll get into those mountain networks too. Some very kind of almost Chinese-inspired highways. Love to see the defense turrets on the beach. Very thematic. Right, very Omaha beach vibes. Piers down here too. More Stonehenge atop the hills. As we head into the bit that reminds me of Thessia, where the town of Ardat Yakshi is for those that follow the Thessia series. Really reminds me of it out here. With the rail snaking across this bay as well. How nice is that? I love the sandbanks coming out of the water. Not something we see very often, that on a coastline. No, at least not that I can recall. It's probably happened at some point, but there's hundreds of maps now. Goodness gracious. But I really like the coast. See where you get a lot of your building done here, right? It's a very tropical coastline. You can see those oil deposits in the shallower waters as well. Really cool. There's also a river right here as well running alongside the bay, which is really nice. A lot of fun estuary action there, isn't there, if you like. So super nice coast, and this continues all the way around. Especially over here too, more little reefs and islands to make use of here. You could create some self-sustaining islands with the plazas and promenades DLC, which would be a lot of fun, I think. And then this coast wraps all the way around. It's a little more wild and untamed this side, but much more of the same vibes. But you can see what I mean with the terrain, right? Of course, you can always terraform. Nothing to stop you. Well, here's those Chinese-inspired highways I was talking about. Look at these big bridges spanning over these huge valleys. I think Hawaii has some highways like this as well, doesn't it? These big winding, switchbacking, big elevated things. An eyesore, but they're very impressive bits of infrastructure, aren't they? Interchange here. Very compact, tight Y one there. What insane lane, look at that. As it all sweeps back up to the same height. Very nice. And that continues all the way through this mountain highway. It doesn't stop, does it? Sneaks all the way around in so many bridges and switchbacks. Amazing. What a highway system. Arriving to just a singular directional trumpet interchange. And then the hills. There's a lot of fertile land out here, but you can imagine placing the CS1 farming buildings on terrain like this. Essentially impossible without it looking just rancid. But you won't get much use out of them, I don't think. But it is a really nice map, and I really love the coastlines. I'm a big fan of the tropical maps, New York being one of my favourite ones we ever did. But a lot of fun here, really nice design, definitely more terrain challenges here than any of the other maps we've seen so far. But let me know if you'll be heading to the tropical coast yourself. Next up we have Pine Lakes, which goes into a high, middle of the road B tier for me. Pine Lakes is a boreal themed map with a 63% buildable area. It has all outside connections and all of its resources available. Your natural resources here, almost all of your fertile land is in the valley basin, with ore on the ridges and oil on top of them. For your fishing, it is mostly shellfish, but small patches of salmon and anchovy can be found. Your terrain is kind of classic boreal mountain really, lots of it unbuildable, only a 63% buildable area here. With some interesting coastlines at play as well. Your starting tile includes rail, water and road, everything you need to be getting started with. So I was very close to putting this one in A tier, but I think it's definitely a high B tier. I think it's not as comparable to the other A tiers we have. It doesn't mean to detract away from it though, bear in mind I also gave Hilly Strait I think a B tier ranking in that map pack. And turned out to be one of my favourite ever maps. But our starting tile resides here. We also have rail on the very edge of it, alongside some country roads, and going off of our highway interchange. Some nice simple slip ramps heading down toward the coastline, which has an initial suburban frame laid out for you across these lakes here. As with Murky Coast and Hilly Strait, there is tons of boreal mountain, so a lot of your land won't be that buildable. We have some pretty impressive train infrastructure, snaking up and then splitting off indeed into two separate one-way tracks, which isn't something we see very often at all in the maps, the use of that network. Into these big caverns, isn't that wonderful? With these little valleys with all the cascading water with the mountains in the background. Really nice. There's some nice hillside streams that run up to the map edge, coming out of a water source appropriately detailed with the rocks, etc. And over there into the next valley, we have a bit of a lake. There's a few of these actually, there's another one in the next one too. With an outside rail connection flanking this one. Cutting right through the hills and down and back to that bridge we were at a moment ago. Into the next lake, we'll find more pier props, highways down here, with another rail connection also available. So be prepared to accept a lot of intercity trains here, coming from everywhere. The highway splits off down into a one-lane configuration as it heads along some gnarly terrain, and eventually joins the highway again before heading all the way back to a trumpet configuration, and then all the way through these valleys. I do like the terrain here actually. I have a lot of fun with this. I think boreal maps always shine better at night time, just because of the borealis against the silhouette of the mountains, right? I think it's definitely where they shine, these boreal maps. It's not the theme for everyone, boreal. They can be quite dark if you don't play without play it, to brighten things up a little bit with the latitude slider. And then flat farming land out here in the valleys. Over the big hills, we actually have another sea connection over here. Boats do come on this water. And a nice little position of a castle on the turret here. And then some fun ideas to tease you into tunneling the highway to the other side of the map, of course, because this isn't an active connection. But a lot of your terrain around here is like this, so you won't get that much building done out here without some heavy terraforming. Heading out this way, on the other side of the lake, there's a touch more fertile land, but lots of boreal hills out this way. Not too much space to build either. And then this drops us back into more sea connection out here, where we'll expect boats to come, with lots more very impressive Uncle Ron elevated highways coming through this way. So it is a nice map. I think there's certainly better maps in this map pack than this one. And like I said, I did underrate Hilly Strait quite a lot, so maybe take it with a grain of salt with this one. It's very high B tier, if not A tier itself, but probably not the best map we'll see from this particular pack. Let me know if you'll be heading to Pine Lakes. Quite a challenging map to build on this one with so many hills. Next up, we have Rock Valley, which is definitely an A tier boreal map for me. Rock Valley is a boreal themed map with a 72% buildable area. It does not have a sea connection and has all of its natural resources. For your natural resources, as with all of these maps, they're pretty scattered, if not all together. But ore in the ridges, fertile land in the flats. The oil in this map is quite inaccessible. It's on pretty gnarly terrain here. Fish, everything is available in varying different quantities across the varying riverways. In your terrain, the boreal mountains are limited much more to the map edge this time, giving you about 10% more buildable area than the previous boreal map. And your starting tile includes some nice preset infrastructures alongside a nice waterfront to make use of. So this one definitely jumps into A tier for me. I definitely prefer the landscape here, the more connected, buildable area, and the waterways I think are a bit more interesting. Let's get stuck into the starting tile. Got some old ruins here to make use of. You could certainly historicalize this as part of a themed build. With lots of waterfront and ferry action to get involved with here, taking people back and to across the rivers, bridges, pathways. Lots of stuff to build up and around this area here. This bridge really reminds you of Murky Coast as well, doesn't it? Not quite as tall as the one there. Away from the starting tile, we'll arrive at a really interesting cloverleaf configuration using the bus lanes. That gives you essentially another city start on the opposite side of the tile there. The first train line also is just on the next tile over, so you won't have to wait too long at all to set your train network up, before both of those road and rail connections head to your outside connections on the map edge. The rivers are really nice coming through. I love all the little broken islands within them. And you can totally imagine building the bulk of your metropolis around sort of this riverbank all the way through here, so this waterway just becomes surrounded by city centre. Would be quite a nice thing to do with it, I think. The hills kick in as we head towards the edge of the map with this big landmass, sort of noticeable within the valley, if you like. Trumpet interchanges and switchbacking highways and trains pass all the way through this district. As you can see, the terrain becomes significantly more unstable around here. Not sure if the train police will be happy with this. Again, I'm taking Uncle Ron's expert design on it. But big switchbacking systems all the way through as it heads back across the river into the significant boreal mountain landscape here. As your outside connections trail off to this side of the map. Most of this stuff is unbuildable. You won't get too much out here. But there's nothing wrong with a forested mountain, of course. And out here it gets even bigger across the other side. With almost like a dried up riverbed here, right? Using the texture painter there. You definitely play with some extra landscaping tools to reintroduce another lake up here into a waterfall. But extreme terrain, right? You're not going to get too much out here beside the odd rural town, maybe an observatory. So I think getting up there, I think, would be the biggest challenge. Possibly your ascent would begin from here, I think, wouldn't it? There's a little lake also up at the top too. The mountains on the southern side, just as boreal and just as dominant. There's a few more water features lying up these ones too. Boreal mountain lakes. With some really creative use of the surface textures here, right, just to give some different texture and colour into the map. I love to see stuff like that. And then this little river flows through this canyon back out into the main waterway. By your starting tiles, industry detailing out here. Y interchanges taking you to different places. So a really nice boreal map. I think just a more connected landmass. Slightly calmer terrain here. Definitely pull this up into A tier for me. Definitely one of the better boreal maps the game has. I can imagine some quite fun builds developing here. Let me know if you'll be descending into the Rock Valley. Next up we have Ronstein Castle, which is a very strong A tier map. Ronstein Castle is a European-themed map with a 57% buildable area. All outside connections and all resources are available here. Real natural resources, big chunks of everything is pretty much everywhere. Both mountaintop and underwater oil are also available. For the anglers amongst you, mainly shellfish and anchovy, with some salmon in the rivers. In your terrain, the game marks it as 57%, but it seems a little bigger than that to me, but significant mountain ranges in the east and some larger ones to the north and the south. With your starting tile possibly being one of the most beautiful we've ever seen, with rail, highway and arterial already here for you. So a really nice map, and of course the namesake, the Ronstein Castle, is here, which has been immaculately built with castle walls, dirt road, dirt bridge, and turrets, and some nice details here. Really nice feature for your starting tile, that, isn't it? Sits up on the hill, some nice landscaping around the base. Very tidy. And an interesting starting tile. You got rail in here already. All these roads coming in. They're really fun. Lots of fun to be had here with getting your city started up. Big water masses to the south and the east here. Especially big, actually. You'd be setting up all your harbours and whatnot out here. See some more castle detailing on this little finger island with huge swaths of fertile land being used as a resource painter again, really. You can find some little hills out here as well. Or a nice little basin hits the map edge. Mountains are pretty small this side of the map, it's mainly here where they get significant. Lots more fertile land around these bridges, interchanges, big elevated sections too. And then serious mountain time, which is very nice. Good spots for your observatories, nice valleys up here. Pretty gnarly terrain, be tough to build on, but not impossible. A really fun little interchange system here, isn't there? We're seeing this little kind of cube about thing come in again. Uncle Ron's obviously a big fan of this. Yeah, some really nice use of the terrain there, isn't it, to create a multi-layered interchange. What a beast. Heading down this, we'll see little instances of bridge segment as it winds across the terrain, joining up with a rail heading to another outside connection and an interchange on the other side of these mountains over here. But over this way, we'll see more mountains and more little wiggly switchback systems. Well, isn't that fun to watch? We come across some big rail bridges. Yeah, very impressive, isn't it? Really nice. Love seeing a big tall rail bridge like that. That joins the mountaintop and heads back out with the highway to another outside connection on a smaller lake on the edge of this mountain range in the north, before the other lake swings back around over the bridges that introduce you back into your starting tile configuration. So you've got a little bit of everything here. There's some nice detailing, different variations in terrain, and a significant amount more buildable area than I think the game is giving it. 57% seems quite low, but there's a lot of space to build here. And a nice little European map with some nice features. A solid A tier for me. Let me know if you'll be visiting Ronstein Castle. Next up we have Starfort Delta, which goes into a must play. Starfort Delta is a temperate theme map with a 73% buildable area. All connections and all resources are present here. For your natural resources, you will see ore and fertile land painted as fields, with pretty much all of your oil being underwater. The fishing, for surprisingly so much water, only shellfish and anchovy are present here. And the terrain is very flat indeed. Super buildable here. You won't really run into any terrain issues at all. And for your starting tile, you get access to 2 interchanges and a train line. So this is a super nice map. Usually I tend not to rank very flat maps that highly, but the infrastructure and the landscape and the rivers here make this a super fun one to play. Great starting tile, so much interchange access and room immediately to expand off of this with already established arterial systems. And ways to expand and grow in many different directions from this little area here where you start. And you border some magnificent interchanges. Look at these. Amazing, look at that. Can you just enjoy that time lapse forever? What a monster. Absolutely insane. Brilliant work. This goes off through many tree-lined fields out to your outside connection where there's more rivers. And indeed we'll head to the namesake, the Starfort, which is just across from the starting tile. This big beast of infrastructure right here. Lots of pre-made castle detailing, turrets and trenches on here. Just such a unique aesthetic, right? Get a bit of find it, you can bring the walls in here, make like an internal walled city. Could be a very cool build to run with. So a massive, distinctive sort of feature here to really build your city around. Trains all running through here as well. You can imagine when this is all built up, how cool would that look, being this is your city centre. Just lots of possibilities here. And the land is very buildable and very friendly. Rivers and fields for days, big forests as well. Great for a bit of forest industry here. More Trump interchanges with a lake in the eye. And then the coastline is wonderful and very big. So you could build up so much tourism here. Little lakeside retreats, just endless sprawling metropolis all across this land. Does get a little bit Miami vibes out here actually, especially with the bridges going over to these sort of thin slithers of land. And there's even like canal infrastructure, very reminiscent of Los Angeles actually. As you kind of get this man-made structure heading out to sea. Which is something I've never seen before from a CS map actually, this little bit here. Very unique. But your coastlines are interesting as well. You're not just playing with endless beach, you've got islands out here you can do things with. And then all these inlets just lend itself to such a significant ferry network system. I think moving people up and down the rivers along the coastlines, you could have a lot of fun with the water here. There's quite a lot to get stuck into. And even the riverways out here almost look like some kind of preset gas or oil port, don't they? You could have a lot of fun with the refinery out this way. A lot of very heavy kind of riverside industrial. With ferries moving all across these riverways. And there's tons of bridges all across them. Train, road, you get the little arch bridges too. So lots of layering to be had. In what is quite a unique map, I really, really like the Starfort. I think this map's got quite a lot of potential. Surprising for me to put such a flat map into must play, but everything else about this map I think brings it very much into that tier. Let me know if you'll be fortifying the Starfort Delta. Next up we have Sunny Keys, which falls into a very healthy A tier map. Sunny Keys is a tropical theme map with a 49% buildable area, all connections and all resources are available here. For your natural resources, again fertile land and ore can be found painted in as field texture with all of your oil available around the coastline. For the fish, again surprisingly, everything but tuna but enormous quantities of shellfish. And the terrain, just as the last map, is extremely flat but much more broken and varied coastline available here. And your starting tile is very nice arterial structure and rail immediately available for you. So a super nice map and very much reminds me of Florida Keys, which we'll get to over there in a second. But our starting tile features more wonderful castle work by Uncle Ron again. He's an expert with these castle ruins, isn't he? Really nice configurations of them. Super cool. But the rail cut in right through the middle of your first tile, so you could factor in your first train station into your initial build and really build the town out from that initial public transport infrastructure. And essentially creating kind of a first transit hub around this major rail line here. But a lot of opportunities with a rail crossing against some palm-lined arterial roads. So lots of Florida vibes happening here. Away from our starting tile, on this massive landmass, we'll come across lakes and an absolute beast of what is, I guess, a turbine interchange. Is that configuration there, isn't it? If my interchange knowledge is up to scratch. But crazy again. There's just monstrous interchanges. I'll have to put together a short time lapse of all the interchanges in Uncle Ron's map pack. Away from here, we will see swerving networks with another trumpet configuration lead off to our outside connections. Across very flat landscape here. Same again this side just with the rail. And then we pick up that coast again, which has rock detailing. So if you want coast or tropical map, this one, and I think is it the islands from Sanctum's map, are two really nice tropical solutions. Some nice maps here. And this is where we get the Florida Keys vibe, right? Just like we saw on the last map with those highways flowing across real small slithers of land out to an outside connection. So definitely Florida inspired this, right? It has to be. So really nice. Great highways there, something a bit unique and different, isn't it? Ferries are going to play a big part for you here too. As we come across really the broken island chain, where you could set up tons of roads, have to serve all this by train, lots of different infrastructure ideas you could put out here. We're being teased into a port against here, so you could imagine most of your downtown residing between highway and coast here, which would be a really nice natural climb to take on actually, especially if you're starting here and then you're crawling up in that density up to your big waterfront here. And with all these big impressive networks all coming into it, you can imagine a skyline in the background of this, can't you? So quite an exciting map. I really like this one. It could also be borderline must play as well. Really depends what you think of the terrain, I think, personally, as to whether or not you'll get more or less enjoyment out of this one. Big bridges, huge spans of these big cable-stayed bridges. Very nice. Boats coming under them, with all these little inland waterways just connecting back to the quay front. So another pretty flat map, but really nice tropical solutions. The quays of Sunny Keys are extremely nice, with one of the better starting towers we've seen too, with the rail going right through the middle. You can immediately factor in your train infrastructure here. Definitely a better tropical map. Strong A tier, bordering must play for me. Big fan of Sunny Keys. And last but certainly not least is Victory Harbour, which finishes on very strong must play. Victory Harbour is a temperate theme map with a 57% buildable area. All connections and all resources are available. For your natural resources, you'll find fertile land again painted as fields. Almost every mountain ridge has ore on it, with oil lining most of the coastline in larger blotches. For the fish, again, very small amount of salmon, but plenty of shellfish. And the terrain is pretty wild here, only 57% buildable area, but some really nice mountains, coastline, and geography to enjoy. And for your starting tile, you have a beautiful interchange rail, and indeed another fort to enjoy. So let's enjoy this starting tile, shall we? Where we'll see another immaculately designed fort using pathways and walls and trenches. That's so cool, isn't it? What a wonderful little way to use vanilla assets. This comes back down to your first arterial, which has a big elevated rail line running right across the plain. Back into the mountains, where we'll come across one of the more beautiful interchanges we'll see today. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Just so many layers flicking over each other here. Really nice, with the rail also interchanging around it. Great stuff. Coming onto the coastline, we'll be teased into developing a harbour as this big river / canal comes out into the bay. Lots of ports and marinas and skyscrapers would look great here, especially flanked by all these big mountains too. You could have a lot of fun with the city centre in this space, I think. More of this field aesthetic also over here before we arrive to a really small interchange ramp. Non-omnidirectional. And then more mad interchange work. Look at this. All the layers through this valley. Splitting the highway off to another interchange. Then goes all the way through here. Really nice. Great stuff. And that's another outside connection this way as well. The mountain ranges are pretty significant. Does ease out a little bit here, but you're definitely not on flat terrain by any means. More rail connections over the sides, or over the other side of the main mountain ridge, for a big old switchback system. For the highway heads all the way up this valley. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? This heads up to another outside connection before crossing more bridges as the valleys and creeks become significantly more volatile. We've crossed to another outside connection here, I'm guessing, as this couplet system winds all the way through. Serious distance, that, isn't it? It's massive. You've got a big mix of terrain here. You can get very flat down by your coastlines, and then you've also got some buildable country terrain here where it's more sloped in the foot of these larger mountains. So really nice terrain and a good mix of it as well. More highway switchback systems come out from that jumper interchange we arrived at, before we come to another monstrous configuration. Look at that. What a beast. Well, this then heads down with the rail along the coast into a second island where they all blend away into outside connections for us all. And the coastlines themselves are all kind of pre-built, ready for you to build things in. Get smaller towns around these beaches, planning in your larger metropolis. To even be divided by this big chunky landmass, you could kind of have two cities here, right? Build up a little bit of a country coastal road that links them around the side without having to use the highway as well. Really quite a lot of fun inspiration here, especially with this harbour kind of teasing you in to build your city centre around this sort of space. Very nice map, Victory Harbour. Big mix of terrains with some wild networks happening as well. A lot of fun. I can imagine some very nice cities on here. Let me know if you'll be declaring victory on Victory Harbour. So just as with Teddy Radko's Map Pack 3, Uncle Ron's Map Pack 4 comes with many ploppable interchanges. 10 of them to be precise. These can be found under your road menu, under Content Creator Packs, and then Map Pack 4 now has its own section, where we'll find many, including the split trumpet interchange, which is this one right here. Like, for vanilla and console players, this alone makes this map pack worth buying for you. These ploppable interchanges alongside Teddy's essentially mean you don't need to build your own interchange systems anymore, which is massively helpful for vanilla because it's not always the easiest thing to do. Next door to this, we have the asymmetrical dumbbell, which is super nice. It all pre-terraforms for you as well when you place it. Across from this, we have the right angle dumbbell, which is an impressive beast in itself, isn't it? Look at that. Lots of different ways you can build these things out. Just down here, we have the braided interchange, which is a design I don't think I've ever seen before. Very nice though, great way to get your people on and off in a city centre perhaps. Connecting this into arterial roads. You could even make these side roads one directional as well, so everyone keeps going same direction. Here we have the diamond interchange, pretty simple here, nice and compact. Then we have the asymmetrical trumpet, which is this one next door. Nice and big. Always nice to have some good trumpet interchange options. You have the 3-point roundabout here. Pretty common one this, and just saves you having to draw it in yourself every single time. You can just get the nodes and the perfect circle all ready to go for you here. Across from this one, we have the highway to elevated roundabout. Very popular UK interchange this. This is known as the Biffa interchange for me. I always see Biffa use this one, especially in these British builds. So, classic collection, and no longer something you have to build yourself. Then we have the double highway to elevated roundabout, which is the same as the previous one. It just has another connection going over it, 2 highway roads. So a serious tiered interchange that in vanilla would just be such a pain to get all these little curves and angles right. But now you can just plop it and go. And then lastly, we also have very distinctive UK roundabout from Swindon, of course. Swindon's Magic Roundabout, which is insane, isn't it? Look at that. That's so much fun to play with. So you can place the Magic Roundabout now if you want. As this map pack introduces 10 very welcome ploppable interchanges. But otherwise, guys, that will do it for today. Another tier list done for the latest map pack, and honestly didn't see this one coming. We are about to start a new city on one of Teddy's maps in a couple of days as of the release of this video, so if you're interested in more City Skylines 1 and 2 content, don't forget to subscribe for more. Check out Instant Gaming as well. If you're missing any of the DLCs we've covered in this tier list or any of the other ones, you can pick them up very cheap, and it does help support the channel. Massive shout out to the patrons and YouTube members that do just that. Casino, Spartan Angel, Michael W, Bad Wolf, Louis Adlam, Phoenix ND, Blythe, Jamin, and Great C. Thanks so much to our golden patron eggs. Let me know what you think of this one, and do you have a favourite map? Have I underranked or overranked anything? Let me know down below, and if indeed you will be picking up this pack for the maps or just for the interchanges. There will also be an asset showcase of the new content creator asset pack, which will be a separate video from this one, so expect it around the time of the weekend that this embargo lifts. Otherwise, I'll shut up and leave it there. Let's thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.